So for today, those of you just joining us, we have Brian Johnson on with us. He is the founder of PPC Scope. He's also the smartest guy that I know as far as pay-per-click ads go. So I'm really excited to have him.
No
Really
pressure.
happy to have. No pressure, Brian. So we actually gave Brian access to our Jungle Sticks sponsored ads reports a couple days ago. And we said, look, Brian, we want to improve on our PPC for sponsored, for our Jungle Sticks. What can we do? We also just want you to pack in as much information as you can for our audience. So with that being said, Brian, let's go ahead and get started here.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you definitely for having me. I really appreciate the fact that so many of you came out to basically to watch and to listen despite my presence. So we appreciate that. Jumping in, I guess, as far as sponsored products. Obviously, I've been doing, well, I shouldn't say obviously, so I've been doing this for probably about a year and a half now, as far as just dedicated just on sponsored products, primarily with clients, coaching, as well as I put out more of an advanced level course and also developed a software basically for analyzing sponsored products. And been very fortunate to be able to work with a lot of sellers, both large and small, and see just hundreds upon hundreds of accounts, and be able to work with them to be able to help them improve. And while it's not a perfect scenario, not everybody is in a situation. Not everybody has a product that is conducive to advertising. I've got a pretty good track record so far, so hopefully some of the things that I say today are going to resonate, or maybe you'll get a few gems out of what I talk about here, and hopefully you can apply that to your sponsored advertising, and really make some improvements obviously on your advertising. One of the things that I don't talk normally about, and I kind of saved specifically for this call, so and that has to do with from an advertising standpoint, a product has basically a life cycle. So starting out with launching a new product, you can basically launch a new product and use advertising as far as you're not familiar with it, as well as just basically get some new research going. Next would be, it jumps into expanding, basically an expansion phase, which where you're expanding the reach as far as the amount of audience that sees your product. And that's basically scaling out as far as growing your portfolio of keywords so that you can actually target a larger audience, get more ad impressions, and basically get your ad out there even more to hopefully get them to click through on your ad and to convert to your product. Third phase would be optimization. So that would be tightening it up, making things perform better. You've collected all this data. Now it's time to clean it up a little bit. And so there's a number of things you can go through as far as optimization and applying that information that you've learned not only about your advertising and the keywords that are working or not working, but also about some of the terminology that your audience is using in order to search for and to find and ultimately purchase the product that you're selling. We can make that more cost-effective during the optimization phase. And then the fourth phase is not necessarily end of life for the product. However, it is more of a consolidation. You've invested a lot of time and energy and money, of course, into expanding your audience. Now it's time to focus back in on where it really matters, where the conversions are actually occurring. So I'll get into more detail on each one of these. I just kind of wanted to summarize that. Any questions as far as this particular life cycle? I'm sure they'll roll in.
No, that sounds great. It's just active with questions for that. So yeah, let's go ahead and keep moving forward then.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and apply this to the Jungle Sticks as basically the use case that we'll apply this to. I'm going to switch this over just so that everybody's familiar with it. That is, many of you are already familiar with Greg's product here, as far as the jungle sticks, as far as the marshmallow roasting sticks, the I don't know what some of the other terminology. There's a number of terms that are used in order to find a product like this. I am kind of curious as far as how some of your oversized FBA fees work on this, but we can discuss that outside of this. But um, so what I was looking at, what I was tasked with, was to come in and, from an advertising standpoint, is to take a look at a listing and take a look at the advertising that's being currently done on that, and seeing where some of the strengths and weaknesses are, and what recommendations that I can make as far as to improve it. Now, every product, every seller has a different situation. There's a lot of commonalities that I see. Certainly, one of the most common desires by sellers is to simply jump ahead, to the front of the line. They want to use advertising in order to propel their listing to organically the front of page one. And while that is a commendable goal, thing to understand about the advertising on Amazon is that generally the sales and the units that are sold through advertising on Amazon, specifically talking about sponsored products, only runs about 20% of your overall sales volume, putting 80% of your sales and the units that you sell onto how well that your listing is placed and optimized organically. So in some cases, there is going to be a case where the number of units that it requires for you to get on to page one for a set of keywords that you're targeting may have a lower amount of daily or monthly units that you need to sell, and therefore adding on 20% in regards to sponsored products advertising is going to make all the difference in the world. There's also what I consider like a threshold. It's kind of like the edge of the cliff, if you will, generally where you have a number of competitors that stack up with similar bidding in their advertising, or the stack up as far as the number of units that they sell on a daily basis. And so in those cases, you may see an average range across page one. And obviously, I'm sure everybody here has probably used Jungle Scout, obviously, to see that kind of pattern as far as the estimated units sold on page one. And so what we can see on that is sometimes you get groups where you have like maybe 2 or 3 sellers that are right below your own listing, and maybe it's not on page 1, maybe it's on page 5, but at the same time, simply just adding on a few more units or taking away a few units can make the difference between a position and position 15 and position 20 organically. That generally is if there's enough units that are being sold through advertising that actually makes a difference. Same thing occurs if you take that away, then you can drop down below that. But when I go to launch a product, some of the things that I want to make sure that I do is I want to try to do any kind of advanced keyword research that I can, so that I can try to set up my organic listing as well as my campaigns as early as possible. And when I launch, I figure there's going to be about a 2-week grace period where where basically Amazon's giving us a bit of a benefit of the doubt when you first launch a product. Usually that only lasts a couple of weeks, so you have to really hit it hard, not only with whatever promotions that you're using for organic positioning and organic push towards page one, but also going heavy on your advertising. The way I usually start that out from an advertising standpoint is I want to know if I'm not familiar with this particular product. Maybe it's something where I researched products and I just discovered this one and said, you know what, that looks like an opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and sell it. I may not be passionate about that product. Therefore, I may not know the audience that well, nor I may not also know the terminology that the audience is using. I may know a couple of things like bamboo skewers and some of these, but there could be 20, 30 other search terms that people normally use that may be culture-based. It could be regional, and I don't know those until I start running the advertising in those, and I start discovering some of the search terms that they're using.
So Brian, can I just interrupt you for a second? You said you really want to take advantage of that first 2 weeks where Amazon gives you the benefit of the doubt. So does that
Yep.
mean even with 0 reviews, you're going to be running PPC, so you're hoping to get reviews, or is it really just to increase your impressions and get a few
Well,
sales?
so when I start out, it's from an advertising standpoint. My first goal is not to get reviews. It's not to get to sales. I know that a lot of sellers expect that. They walk in and they say, well, I'm going to advertise so that I can get sales. But the way I take a look at it is if I'm going to sell this product long term, I need to understand what the competitive space is as far as the advertising, as far as the average bidding range for the keywords that apply to my product. I also want to know more about my target audience. I don't initially expect any conversions. So whether or not I have reviews or not that's not I mean, I don't consider that a first priority. I know that the reviews are going to come in because of my other efforts in launching a product, whether that is, giveaway or tapping into friends, family lists, whatever methodology that you happen to be following when it comes to launching a new product and setting up for organic growth. But from an advertising standpoint, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a couple of automatic campaigns for the product, and I do this on a per product basis. I might bundle these together underneath a parent product if there's a lot of variations, and that's primarily for my launch and my research. I change it later on, but I'll get into that. When I launch, I'll create an automatic campaign with a high bid, say like a $5 bid, with a fairly low budget, like say maybe even $5 or $10. I expect it to run out of budget right away. I also only run it for 1 day. The second automatic campaign that I'm going to run is typically going to be a lower one, so maybe it's at $1. That one I expect to continue to run long term. That one's going to be part keyword research. It's also going to just be the automatic campaign that I continue to operate long term. The goal of that first of the high bid automatic campaign that is very short duration and is expected to run out of budget right away is simply to collect some initial research as far as what is the hottest or the most expensive keywords for this type of product, so that I know kind of where the bar is set. I know that, okay, this is a product that's that's $3.50 per click for the most competitive keyword for this kind of product. If you may be in a niche that the highest, the most expensive one is 40 cents. You don't really know that until you actually test. And generally, I find that $5 is sufficient for most products. It's pretty rare, unless you're in like pet, unless you're in like pet products. It's typically going to be on the higher end as far as the cost per click. But for most products, simply bidding $5 for just 1 day, it's going to tell you what the most expensive and theoretically the most competitive keyword is for your product. It's also going to spill in a number of other keywords that are lower cost that is going to tell you as far as how Amazon, essentially how Amazon looks or perceives the product that you're selling. A number of you have probably already heard me talk about in the past validating your campaign. That's simply just looking at the search terms that Amazon initially discovers for your product and starts showing your ad for. And that's based off of the product category that you're in, the title keywords that you have, and its experience already with similar products out there.
Do you have
Cool.
any data on, uh, sorry, Brian, just wondering if you have any data on what the average CPCs you're seeing for some of the more competitive niches and then some of the less competitive niches.
So it's going to vary quite a bit. And since I've been doing all this conversation side of things, let me switch back over to just video here. I'm assuming that the screen was showing the whole time as far as just your product, but as far as various bid ranges, I can tell you as far as which ones I typically see are going to be more expensive. Generally, products that are in pet supplies and beauty and as well as supplementation, in certain supplementation, not all supplementation, but generally I look at it from, I'd say probably pet supplies is probably the most expensive. Beauty is probably the second. Health and supplementation is probably third. As far as the categories, as far as the average cost per click ranges that are competitive. And then probably the least ones are things like some of the industrial or commercial products that have a lot lower volume and are a lot less interesting. You know, there are things like, you know, washers and bolts and urinal mats. They generally have a much lower cost per click, because one of the things that I will constantly, or that I'll remind friends and family who get into this business is they start out and they say, well, you know, I want to sell, you know, Sony plasma TVs. You know, obviously they're probably not selling plasma TVs anymore, but you know, they're selling, you know, they want to sell something shiny and something that they can tell people, hey, I sell this and I sell a bunch of it. And I said, that's not where the money's at. That's where the competition is at. The money is in the stuff that you don't want to tell people. Now, I'm not saying necessarily, you know, adult category, but admittedly, adult category is a very high volume sales category on Amazon. And but you know, most people don't want to, you know, tell their friends and family or, you know, their pastor or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, you know, I sell, you know, this kind of product, because either they're embarrassed or they think that it's not shiny enough. And honestly, the things that are uninteresting and not that shiny, the example that I joke around about is a product that I use in some of my demonstration videos and such for training, and that is literally like the urinal screens. It's like, you know, I don't want to tell people. It's like, oh, I sell urinal screens, but you know what? Commercial, you know, restaurants and commercial businesses, they buy those things all day long, every day. You know, there's money there. You know, you can say it's like, well, you know, I sell fitness supplements and that type of thing. That's great, but you've got a lot of competition you're going against. And so that's why I say it's like, you know, the shiny objects are the ones, you know, the ones that you're proud to say that you sell are the ones that have the most competition, because that's the same attitude with a lot of people.
Brian, that's the same thing that we talk about in our like product research webinars. I call it just like the weirdness test. I was like, if it's like a weird and unsexy product that like you almost don't want to tell your friends about, oftentimes those are the best ones to sell on Amazon because they're a little less competitive, probably just as much demand and so forth. So that's cool. You agree with that?
Yeah, no, without a doubt. That's, I mean, you know, really that's where the money is. You know, if you're getting in now, if you're just doing product research, there are, I can tell you is that I see trends in products that, you know, as far as people, because I do have a, you know, consulting agency and such as well, I see a number of, you know, the same kind of products that, you know, come in, and they usually come in batches. You know, like within a 2 or 3 month period of time, I'll see, you know, 5 to 10 of the same product come in. And we kind of joke internally is that, you know, it's that excitement. It's like, okay, what product are they selling? You know, they provide their information, their listing information, and their ad report, and you go to pull it, and you're like, oh, no, not this again. You know, it's, you know, because there's some products where like going, you know, it's getting saturated fast, and you don't want to come back and tell them, but you have to. You know, you have to say, look, here's our recommendations, but you know, this one, unfortunately, you've got to fight ahead of you. You know, I encourage fighting, but at the same time, you know, we obviously see a lot more, you know, new products that come in, especially the ones that come to us are the ones that are saying, hey, I'm struggling. And when you see the same products come in again and again and they're struggling, you know, those are, you know, we can usually help them, but it's usually a sign that there's saturation coming.
Cool. All right, so if I was a new seller, you recommend then starting out 2 automatic campaigns, one with a high max bid and a low overall budget, and the other one you should put your max bid at about $1. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's an arbitrary number.
Okay.
It's not an exact science. It's more of a case of you just kind of, you'll adjust that once you kind of figure out some of the bid range from that high automatic campaign. It's very important to understand is that on that high automatic campaign, you know, sometimes what I'll do is I'll start out and I'll just create one automatic campaign, and I know that I'm going to go in tomorrow and I'm going to reduce the bid. However, if you're the type of person to set something up and then to walk away, you don't want to have a $5 cost per click campaign just continually running until you remember to fix it. So that's why I recommend the two campaigns, one that has the $5 cost per click and literally set it to expire the very next day, so that you're not just blowing your budget every day, because it's expected that that's exactly what's going to happen. The second campaign, the second automatic campaign, is again, that's that ongoing, long-term, and I'll explain as far as how I continue to use that in a specific way. But that one I continue to run. I don't see an end date on my lower cost automatic campaign. Generally, what I'm going to do is that when I do launch, again, I'm looking to validate my product listing, make sure that Amazon understands the product I'm selling, and I can usually see that by the sheer volume of ad impressions that they are showing my product advertisement for, that I can see in the search term reports. As most people know, is it usually takes 2 to 3 days in order for the data, especially the sales data, to show up in the search term report. But that is certainly a great place to start when it comes to just understanding what your audience is. So if you're looking at, say, the impressions column within a search term report, in fact, let me bring up the one for Jungle Sticks here. Share this. Let me know when you can see the spreadsheet there.
Yep, got it.
Cool. So in this case here, if I am looking at a search term report, in this case, we do have just one automatic campaign and one manual campaign, and it's pretty easy just to go in and set the keyword to the asterisk and know that that's strictly just going to be an automatic campaign. For anybody who doesn't know, that the automatic campaigns are controlled by Amazon. Therefore, they're not matching it up to a set of keywords that you're bidding upon. They're making the choice themselves as far as when they're going to show your ad based off of the customer search terms that are used to search for product. And that's why there is just the asterisk in the keyword column. Generally, what I'm going to do is that when I'm looking at the high bid, like the $5 bid automatic campaign, I'm going to look to see which ones have the highest cost per click, so that I know which search terms are the most expensive and kind of like and what the range is. In this case here, I can see I just created a summary bar, and this is something where I create summary rows just so I can consolidate and summarize and average the data that I'm looking at, so that I have a better perspective as far as what's going on with the sales funnel, and I'll touch on that in a moment. But what I'm basically doing with that high automatic campaign is simply just saying, okay, what's the most expensive keyword for this product, given that I've bid $5? And when you first start out, you might have something that comes up that's $1.50 or $3. The point of this is that if it turns out that one of the most competitive and highest converting search terms has an average cost per click of $2.50, and you set it up for $2, you never would have seen that, or you would have rarely seen that particular keyword. You certainly wouldn't have known that that was a especially competitive keyword. Generally, under normal theory, is that a highly competitive keyword that is getting a high bid, a high average cost per click, there usually is a reason for that. Usually it's either because it has market perception, where people think that that's what sellers think that that's what is the main keyword based off of external advertising and such outside of Amazon, or it actually does have value in that it is the highest converting. Therefore, there's more sellers who have recognized that, and therefore they're driving the bid up higher. Until you test it, you don't really know.
Hey Brian, just to clarify, what's the date range on this?
So in this particular date range, I narrowed it down. So this is running, looks like May, mid-May. Mid-May, and then I
through
have it
today.
filtered out for just showing like within the last couple of weeks. Now, normally what I'm going to do, so if I open this up a bit, I can see, the full date range. The reason that I usually take the last day of impression, I guess this is kind of a tip as far as if you're using the search term report in an Excel spreadsheet or numbers or Google Sheets, then what I typically recommend doing is filtering down to within the last week or two of last day of impression, simply to show the ones that are currently active. Like in this example here, roasting marshmallow sticks, this particular one, roasting marshmallow sticks extra long, this particular one only ran for 1 day. But the point of showing just within the last couple of weeks is that if I already did optimization and I already removed a keyword in the past, did a either pause or negative exact match or reduce the bid or moved it someplace else, then if I've already moved it somewhere else, then I don't want to show it on my recent data, because I want to try to get as best as I can a view of what currently is going on.
Okay, so can we just summarize? So you're looking at on a cost per click basis, you filter from the most expensive down for the past few weeks, right? And then from there, you're just trying to assess what the most competitive keywords are, and
Yeah,
if
and keep in
it's
mind, yeah, and this is keep in mind this is generally during the launch. You're only going to use that high auto during a launch. Once you're already established, you don't need to run a high auto because you've already understood, you've already collected enough information that you probably have a good idea as far as what the bid range is. This is primarily just for initial launch.
got it. Okay.
So really, I mean, it doesn't really matter, because when that first week when you're going in there to look at a new product launch, a new advertisement, you're only going to have a week of data. It's not going to include the most recent 2 days, and therefore, and of course, because it only ran for a day on the high automatic campaign, there's only going to be 1 day of data there anyway.
Got it. Okay.
So
And
in
then,
that case.
oh, sorry. A couple people were curious what you've done to manipulate the data, or did you export it and it was already formatted like this?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. So I have in Excel, I run macros that basically go through and do formatting and sorting and that kind of stuff. You can see, I've got things colored. I add in new columns. I do summary bars. These are all things that I need. It takes probably I'd say probably 10 to 12 seconds usually for my macro to run. So I do a whole bunch of stuff. It goes through and identifies things that are poorly performing. It just allows me to more easily assess what the listing is. Normally, it's only going to be, maybe this information is not going to be formatted nice and pretty. The column widths are going to be off, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a little harder to read, which is in part what drives us as far as developing the software, because that makes it a lot easier to do all the stuff that I would do manually. But we're getting to the point now where I'm using the spreadsheets less and less. But this is more if you don't have software, you can go in. You don't necessarily need to use a macro or anything. It's more of a case of filtering the columns so that you can look at specific data, look at specific campaigns. So you can isolate how are specific campaigns performing, how are specific keywords performing, and more importantly, to be able to sort the data in there so that, from high to low or low to high, depending on which field that you're looking at.
Sure.
Brian, can you just clarify? There's a little bit of chatter in the chat box about a few people are kind of just starting out with pay-per-click. Can you just give us a 1-minute rundown of the difference between manual versus auto campaigns?
Okay, your audio is really breaking up on my end, so you're saying that basically do a 1-minute do a quick summary of what?
Of manual versus automatic campaigns.
Oh, okay. So yeah, manual versus automatic campaigns. So an automatic campaign or automatic targeting campaign is the official word. That is where Amazon takes control and runs the advertising for you to a point. Basically, what they're doing is that you're giving Amazon the choice to when your ad is shown. Amazon is taking a look at when a shopper is searching for a product. Let's see here. Actually, no, I'll just explain it. It's not going to switch easily. When a customer or a shopper is searching for a product, Amazon they also understand which category and subcategory that your product is assigned to. They're also going to understand that, okay, you are wanting to advertise your product, and therefore they're going to show your advertisement alongside where the rest of the organic listings are, whether it is on the search term report, or I'm sorry, the search result page when you do a search on Amazon, or if it's perhaps on a like a product detail page, either your own or a competitor's. There's going to be sponsored ads, mobile devices, and also third party or external, outside of Amazon. So Amazon's basically going to make a choice that, for instance, if somebody does a search for s'mores maker, they can make a reasonable assumption based on their understanding of your product that it is related to s'mores maker. It's within a category that other products are also advertising for s'mores maker, or may have that in your content, or in your own content you may have s'mores maker, or you may have you're basically being associated with a subcategory where other products also have or also have that in that word in their content. They may be bidding on it. They may be ranking organically for it. They're also going to go so far as to say that they're aware of shoppers who purchase this product may also purchase other products, because they have a much richer set of data than we are ever going to see when it comes to the different products that shoppers buy that may be related to ours. I call those audience relevant terms, versus like s'mores maker in this case here would be a product relevant term. So it's directly about this particular product, versus it's the same audience that might purchase this product is also going to be searching for a related product or a similar product, like camp stoves, for instance. So this would be considered an audience relevant term. Amazon's going to take the liberty in an automatic campaign of showing your ad to somebody who's searching for camp stove. They're not looking for a s'mores maker. They're not looking for skewers. However, they are looking to purchase a product that goes well with a product like this one. And so they're going to be, they're not simply just showing your ad just for the terms that are related to your product. And so when you look at the automatic campaign and you look at the search terms that are occurring, and that's actually step 2 on the automatic campaigns, if you sort by the number of volume of impressions that your ad is being shown down, you can see the top search terms that are being used, where your ad is actually being shown by Amazon in this automatic targeting campaign. So
Brian,
some of those
people are pretty intrigued. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, like, some of those search terms, you may look at it, because that's part of the validation, is you come in here, and traditionally what I taught, and I've changed my tune in 2016, pretty much every single time Amazon changes the algorithm each month for sponsored products, I usually have to update as far as what is working, what's not. But historically, and what is so commonly taught, is to go in and say, okay, the automatic campaign is coming back, and okay, s'mores, s'more sticks, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I have all these other terms here that are not related to my product. Amazon must not understand what I'm selling. Yet, if you look at it closer and you take a look at some of these terms that are in here, it's possible that Amazon is trying to show your ad. Maybe there's not a lot of keywords, or maybe they don't understand your product perfectly, but they understand their shopper community, and they understand that shoppers who have purchased a product like yours have also bought these other products. Therefore, they're showing your ad to those shoppers in hopes that they'll make basically an impulse buy. Do you have other questions there?
Yeah, so people are loving this spreadsheet. Wondering if it is available for download or if they can have access to it in any way, or is that more of like what your software does?
Yeah, I honestly, I'd you should probably push them more toward the software, just because there's a lot more power in the software than what you're going to do in a spreadsheet. As far as this macro goes, it doesn't do it. I mean, I do some additional formatting stuff for the sake of this example here, but yeah, as far as the macro goes, I don't generally share the macro. So I'm sorry.
Okay. No, totally fair. But maybe you can run through like what you're highlighting, this conditional formatting of green and red, and then maybe like 3 key takeaways once people do a search term export and get here on their own.
Okay. And I guess kind of to wrap up the earlier question as far as the automatic versus the manual targeting, the manual targeting is where you specify which keywords that Amazon shows your ads to. So automatic is more for you're allowing Amazon to show your ad based off of whenever they want to, and based on what they think is going to get a click on your ad, versus the manual campaign where you're basically kind of force feeding Amazon and saying, show my ad under these conditions, which is these keywords, this bid price.
Got it.
As far as the formatting on here, so one of the things that some may have already picked up is I have an extra column in here, and sometimes I have 2 extra columns. So usually what I'll do is I'll do a net column. A net column is basically simply just a calculation of the difference between. That's not showing in the form a little bit. The difference between the gross product sales and the ad spend for each keyword. And so it's basically it's similar to the ACOS, the advertising cost of sale, as a percentage, except this is basically in a dollar form. This does not take into consideration, as the ACOS does not take into consideration, the actual net profit margin of the product. And so I might actually add in another column, or I used to, I should say. I don't do that since we launched the new software, but where I'll actually figure out, okay, this product maybe has a 30% net profit margin before advertising. And so maybe I'll have a column that tells me what my actual, on a per keyword basis, what my actual profit or loss is, considering what my actual net profit margin is for that product. Because that way, it's and usually that's more of a it's kind of depressing sometimes when people actually do that, because they go in and they say, well, I'm selling it's like, oh, I'm selling 6 units or 60 units or whatever. And then they figure out, it's like, okay, yeah, I had $120, $119 in product sales. I'm doing great. But then when they actually calculate in their net profit margin, they find out that they're actually losing money in some cases. Actually, in more cases than most people want to know.
In this example, let's say we get Jungle Sticks landed at an Amazon warehouse for $4. You would just set a column, the difference in the net minus $4, and then that would be the true profit margin. Is that correct?
It would probably be more like product sales minus yes, that actually would be another way of doing it. Yeah, I do. Apparently, I overcomplicate it. I do percentages, and so then I multiply product sales times deduct a percentage off, and then deduct the ad spend. But yeah, that would work if you actually know your fixed dollar amount for your net profit margin or your net product cost. Then you can build that into that calculation in order to see that. That's pretty easy to do in the software, but something like that, it's actually fairly easy to do in a spreadsheet too. It's just a case of creating a simple formula, just a math formula that takes into consideration. But honestly, I would guess that I would probably say less than half of this audience has probably actually calculated their net profit margin. That's no joke. I see that a lot, where it's a question I always ask of clients, and I always ask within webinars. And I would guess that if we took a poll right now, you'd probably see some similar results, where especially with new sellers, some people who are very well established, generally the sellers that are doing mid 5 figures and higher per month are generally going to have all that figured out, of course. But majority of sellers are the newer sellers, the smaller sellers, and they haven't taken the time. They're just hoping to get a sale, and get a unit, and they're focused in on things like BSR and number of units sold, they're not really taking the time to figure out, am I just bleeding money by advertising? And it's something you've got to figure. You've got to know your numbers. Otherwise, you don't know if you're breaking even.
Sure. Great takeaway. So really just get an idea of the landed cost, which is your cost of product, cost of shipping, cost of getting it to Amazon, and then you just want to make sure that you're profitable when you subtract the net column, when you subtract that product cost from your net column. You want a number above 0.
Yep.
All right, awesome, thanks. Hey, Brian, just to clarify, maybe people might have come in late, but it is PPC Scope is the software that you're referring to?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much plugging you want me to do, because I've got a few things, but
sure. Yeah. No.
Yeah, the software, and here's what I'll tell you is, and actually I had my team put this together. We are actually in the process. So ppcscope.com is the name of the software. We actually built this about a year ago, is when version 1 started coming out. I think it was like maybe like August, September is when we first started launching version 1. And we had quite a few growth pains with version 1. We had platform limitations. Anyway, the point is that with the version 2 of the software, which is now becoming available, we're actually launching it later on this week, and I went ahead and had my team put together basically a special offer for your team, if that's something, or for your audience if that's something you want to present to them. But the version 2 of PPC Scope is completely rebuilt. It is nothing like version 1, and we have about I think it's like probably 80 beta testers that have been just hammering on this thing for the last few weeks, and they've provided some fantastic feedback and helped us work out some of the bugs. So it's definitely ready to go. But the common feedback that we got was, this is just amazing compared to what they used to use with the version 1. So we're very proud of version 2, and it definitely sets the platform that we need in order to hit some of the vision that me and my team want to be able to do this year with the software, as far as more advanced analysis and more full integration into the Seller Central account, which version 2 is integrated into the Seller Central account. So that's the software. Of course, I do have my agency, but people can hit me up on Facebook for that kind of stuff. And then of course I've got the Advanced Sponsor Products Academy, which of course is just sponsorproductsacademy.com. We actually went ahead and worked with, my partner on that one is Brian Burt, and so we went ahead and we came to agreement on that and came up with an offer for that as well. And I can talk about that later on, but
sure. Yeah,
we were pretty aggressive for your audience benefit.
Thanks. Appreciate that. So yeah, if we were to kind of take a look at this, download it, how could we optimize? How could we improve sales right away, cut costs, and improve our profit margins?
Okay, so here's something that I'll take a look at first. I look at things from kind of a higher level. When I look at the search term report, it used to be that I simply just opened up a search term report and I would say, okay, what's costing me money? What's more expensive than I'm getting back? What am I selling the most of? And that was fine for the early days, as far as early optimization. But what I'd found over time is that there was a lot of money being left on the table, or I was missing out on more important aspects that the advertising reports would tell me. And so that's continued, across, hundreds of clients, and a lot of testing over the past, year plus, have come up with some better methodologies on this. And so here's one of the things. The first thing that I look for, once I get my spreadsheet formatted, I'm going to create of course I've got all my columns just filtered so that I can do sorting and I can do filtering. Sure. But one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to create at least one summary bar, and that summary bar is going to sum up all the impressions that I get, all the clicks, It's going to make a calculation as far as the click-through rate based off of these summary calculations. Of course, it's going to add up all my, my total spend, my do calculations for average cost per click across all my campaigns, my average ACOS across everything, product sales, orders, net, and then the net amount, of course, and then of course my conversion rate for the product. And one of the things I'm looking at is from a sales funnel standpoint. So as far as a sales funnel goes, the sales funnel on an e-commerce platform like Amazon is, and this is really just a high-level, rough, view of it, but the two main points that I look at is our ability in our advertising in order to attract shoppers in order to see and click on our advertisement. That's the first thing. That's the front of the sales funnel. The back of the sales funnel is how well, once they're on our product listing, how well do we actually convert them to purchase the product? So what I generally find is that every campaign, every product has a strength and a weakness just in the sales funnel. In the case of, if I look at in your Jungle Sticks product, for instance, generally what I'm going to look for, let me make a little note here. Generally what I'm going to look for is I want to see at a keyword level, when I have at least 1,000 impressions for a keyword, as an example, I'm going to look for a 0.4 to 0.8% click-through rate. And that is, we can say that's arbitrary, but honestly this is based off of, comparing hundreds of these and what I see again and again as far as what's working, what's not. This is simply just the ratio of how many times your ad is being shown to shoppers and how many times they see and actually, decide that your ad is relevant to what they're searching for and actually click on your ad. There's a number of things that can block an advertisement. It can be they don't like your picture. They've searched for, let's say they've searched for marshmallow sticks. There's going to be organic product listings that show up. There's going to be sponsored products advertising that shows up. The sponsored products advertising usually has less real estate than the organic, as far as the visible area. As far as it's going to have a smaller image, it's going to have a shorter title, and so you have less of a chance in order to attract a shopper to click on your advertisement than you would on an organic listing. Whether or not your image resonates with that shopper, whether or not the front half of your title, sometimes like on the, let me show you an example here on this. Search for marsh. Let's go with roasting sticks. So in these top inline sponsored ads, or there's only just one on this case here, you do have a full set. Now it's not quite your entire title, as you can see, just like the organic listings, the title is going to be cut off. But generally you've got, for a shopper that comes out here, they're going to see a list of not only a sponsored ad on top, maybe one or two, as well as a list of the organic listings. They're going to be scanning down these. They're going to be looking for differentiation. If your image is just like everybody else's, they're likely not going to click on yours because they're just going to pass. They're just going to glaze over in their eyes and they're just going to pass right over it. But if they're searching for marshmallow roasting sticks, maybe they're visually looking in the title for specific words. Maybe they're looking for a set of 8 as an example, and they're, right away they find that they're looking for a set of 8. Maybe they're looking for ones that are bamboo. Maybe they're looking for a specific material. You can see that in the search terms that are in your search term report. And you can see some of the different terminology and variations based off of simply just marshmallow roasting sticks. You can look for stainless steel, you can see bamboo, you can see set of 8, you can see colored for kids, safety, industrial. I mean, there's all kinds of different variations, and you're going to be able to see that in the search terms in your search term report to get better insight as far as just the variety of terms that shoppers use in order to find a product like yours. You want to take advantage of that, especially if you have, kind of back to what I was saying as far as the the click-through rate. This thing doesn't really want to make it easy to switch back and forth, does it? Here we go. The click-through rate is that decision point where a shopper is deciding whether or not they search for marshmallow sticks. Is the advertisement or the limited amount of advertising, that smaller image, that shorter title, the number of reviews, the price that is on that, compared to all of the other advertisements and organic listings that are surrounding it, does it actually, it's a decision point, that click-through rate is the decision point of whether or not they decide that what they're searching for matches up with the advertisement that you're showing and they consider it relevant, they click through on it. That's what that click is going to represent, and therefore if we can at least get in a range of the 0.4 to 0.8%, then we know that we're on an average, basically kind of an average range. Now it's going to vary by category and product type and everything, and some products have different numbers based off of how stylistic they are, maybe different colors or flavors or patterns and that type of thing. However, I see again and again, if we're in that range of 0.4% to 0.8% on a click-through rate at the keyword level, and certainly with it as far as overall campaign, then I know that I'm on target, I'm on range. The advertisement in general is appealing to a normal amount of audience that is seeing my advertisement.
Okay, and where did that 0.4 and 0.8 come from?
Strictly just based off of my own experience from doing as much consulting as I have. So
Okay.
it's it may be they're obviously somebody who is very specific as far as statistical relevance goes would probably dismiss it, and that's fine. But I can tell you is that as a consultant, what I'm looking at based off of like I said, hundreds of these kind of reports that I look at constantly, then these are the kind of numbers that I normally expect to see. I also
Right.
expect to
So,
see usually like a 10 to 20% conversion rate keyword level. That varies more often simply because based off of style, things like jewelry and clothing and some of these things that have a high style or pattern to them, they're going to be a lower conversion rate.
okay.
But the point I was making on this is that these 2 points are very important. They're actually, you can simply just go through and there's plenty of instruction out there as far as simply going in and saying, okay, calculate the difference as far as which ones have the high ACOS and maybe do a negative match on them, or maybe pause it, which I don't usually recommend pausing. I usually recommend either doing a negative exact match or to lower the bid, or in your case, test it out in other match types.
Okay. So then, if we want to sell more jungle sticks, what would the first step be?
So
because we're trying to sell more immediately.
Yeah, you can see here I made a couple of notes here as far as both of these. In both cases, I see that you've got lower than average traffic based off of my own experience and the numbers that I have in my head, which are fairly arbitrary, I suppose. But the things that I'm looking at from each of these campaigns, and usually I'll group these by product, but you only have one product here, so I'm just separating them by the 2 campaigns that you're running, is that the automatic campaign, for instance, and both automatic and manual campaign have relatively low traffic overall. And so I'm going to, first of all, when I see that I have a lower amount of traffic just based off of my experience, I'm going to check to see how many keywords that we're actually bidding on. I actually already looked this up, and I think you had something like 27 keywords that you were bidding on. You probably have a lot more than that or somewhat more than that in your campaign that are simply just not getting impressions, and that's a troubleshooting step. But what I want to see is the second phase of this, once I get out of launch, is to expand. I want to do keyword research that's going to give me 200, 500, 1,000, 2,000 keywords that I can bid on. Now, this particular product may not support 2,000 varieties of keyword for this particular product. However, I'm going to want more than 27. I'm going to want a couple hundred so that I can get more long tail, more descriptive search terms that I can bid on at the keyword level, and I can track and attract a greater audience based off of some of the different terminology they might be using. So I would expand, in this case here, I've recognized that I'm not getting, my ad is not being shown enough. I'm not getting my advertisement in front of enough shoppers. Therefore, I'm going to do keyword research and bid on a lot more keywords, and I'll set up a research campaign just to isolate just the research keywords. But I will literally go out and use tools, Merchant Words or Keyword Inspector or Google Trends or Keyword.io or any of these other kind of keyword research tools in order to come up with a selection, a much greater selection that I can expand my portfolio of keywords that I'm bidding on, so that I can attract, not only so that I can attract a higher number of ad impressions, a greater percentage of the, basically greater market share of the shoppers, but I'm also going to find lower volume, more descriptive, long tail keywords that are going to have a lower average cost per click.
Sure. So yeah, just a little background on these campaigns. We did start our manual campaign. We started an automatic campaign, and then we started a manual campaign based on keyword research using mainly Google Keyword Planner, keywordtool.io, and some merchant words. And then the thought was that we would use the broad match stuff, the keywords that came out of the automatic campaign. So those keywords that were converting well, and then take those and add them to the manual campaign. So I guess that was kind of like our strategy. Use what Amazon provided.
Yeah, and that's a fine strategy. I mean, Google Keyword Planner is going to be more, it's going to be more informational, and so you're going to have a lot more throwaway as far as keywords. You're going to have a much lower percentage that is actually is considered a transactional keyword, basically something that works well on an e-commerce environment. So that's kind of why I like to use merchant words when I'm first starting out. I don't only use merchant words. I usually use probably 4 or 5 tools and combine them all when I first launch, because I'm going to get very aggressive when I expand. I don't just throw 50 words at it. I throw 5,000 words at it. I test them in broad match and phrase match. And the reason I do that is actually something that is probably kind of a, I don't know if necessarily a secret, but it's not very well known, is that when Amazon makes algorithm changes each month, in June they put more emphasis, they shifted emphasis from just broad matching to more of phrase matching. It's actually a mix now, more of broad and phrase matching. And therefore it's easier to get your ad shown when you're bidding on both broad match and phrase match for the same keywords. So if you're currently just one-legged, if you're just on, like in your case here, Greg, you're just bidding on broad match, you really should be expanding that out into phrase match as well as exact match. I don't isolate, I don't say that one match type is better than the other ones. I test all 3, including automatic, and then I let those run for a while, and then I go back and I clean it up. That's part of the optimization that I do, is I'll come back and say, like in this particular search term report, it's pretty easy because these are all broad match, whether it's manual or automatic. When I do a large set of keywords that I'm doing, basically my bulk keyword research, I'll test those in broad and phrase, and then when the ones that actually start converting, I'll move those over to my primary campaign, and then I'll make sure that I'm testing that in exact match also. So I'm testing it in all 3 there. And eventually, probably 2 to 4 weeks, a pattern's going to emerge where a keyword performs best in one or 2 of the match types, and then I simply just get rid of the one that's performing the least.
Okay, this is kind of like a philosophical question that we covered before. Are you creating them in different campaigns or the same campaign, different match type?
So I only use typically 3 campaigns. Now the exception on this is I'll have the 4th one initially, because that's the initial that high auto campaign, but generally I'm going to have 3. And I actually put this on the sheet here to discuss it. My campaign structure is generally going to be my automatic campaign, which is going to have 1 ad group, which is by default broad because it's automatic. I'm going to have a keyword research campaign, in which I'm going to have a broad match ad group where all those keywords that I did research on I set to a broad match type, and I'm going to have a separate ad group with a phrase match type. And then I'm going to have my primary campaign, the one I want to protect and the one I want to make sure I'm optimizing the best. Those are for my converting keywords, and I'm going to be testing all those keywords in each of the match types in separate ad groups. I also separate my individual SKUs into separate ad groups as well, which in some cases, if you've got a dozen variations on, a dozen child variations on a parent, that can balloon up very fast, and so you kind of have to make a decision as far as whether or not you want to put that much work into it. But the way that hold on one second here. The way that the ad auction works, and I'll just kind of tell you the really high level. I go into much greater detail as far as how the ad auction actually works and how to not necessarily manipulate it, but really understand it so that you can get the best results out of it. I do that more in my courses, but the ad auction basically has two primary parts. It has a filtering mechanism, and then it has a sorting mechanism. The filtering mechanism is primarily making a match between the customers, what the customers are searching for, as far as their customer search term. They're going to match that up and say, okay, which ads are eligible to run, which ones are also relevant, meaning this particular search term is most associated with a set of categories. And therefore, Amazon is going to want to show the products that reside in the categories it considers to be most relevant for that search term. And so you have to get a number of things right, otherwise your ad won't even show up at all in the first place. It'll get filtered out completely. So most likely, and this is something that I want everybody to hear, because I hear this a lot within the Facebook groups, is my ads aren't showing for specific keywords, or they're not showing at all. Generally, that's because of relevance, because Amazon's not able to make a match between the search terms that a customer is using and the product and the subcategory that your product resides in, and therefore it's not going to make that match, and therefore it's going to filter out your ad, saying you're not relevant to what the customer is searching for.
Sure.
The second half, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
The second half of the ad auction is the sorting. This is where it basically decides which competitive ad to show first, second, third. Now, of course, we know that Bid Plus is, when you've got competitors or you're using Bid Plus, for instance, which I don't generally recommend, Bid Plus is designed for specific keywords in order to try to show into, you're basically paying a premium in order to have your ad shown up in position number 1. You could still get filtered and your ad would still not show even with Bid Plus. However, Bid Plus will help with the second half as far as the sorting, if you really needed it. Again, I don't recommend Bid Plus. But the sorting as far as which ad to show first, second, third, is based off of a calculation of a number of things. One is how well targeted is your campaign, meaning it's going to consider, it's going to find a keyword that you're, like, for instance, a seller is running an advertisement that is targeting the exact match of marshmallow sticks. Amazon's going to consider an exact targeting of marshmallow sticks more important than a phrase match or a broad match, because they're basically rewarding you for basically like you're specifically targeting a focused audience, and therefore we're going to provide better value. We're going to give you a higher score on the sorting because you're making the effort to actually try to target a specific audience, not just trying to shotgun the entire world hoping that somebody will buy your product, which is a common mistake.
Sure.
The second, or the next piece on that is the campaign. In other words, it's going to basically create a score for the campaign. It's going to look at the age of the campaign, how long that campaign has been running, how many, and also how many clicks that it's accumulated over the years or the months or the days that it's been running. And it's going to create a score based kind of like a quality score for that campaign. And then it's going to use that in another calculation with the actual bid. So why most sellers are of the belief that their bid price for a keyword is the most important thing. It's actually the last thing that Amazon considers. And it's based off of a number of other things, primarily relevance.
Interesting. So a couple of people were asking for just a quick rundown, if you could summarize broad phrase exact, what they are, how Amazon uses them differently.
This is always kind of a one to I struggled this in just trying to make the training videos for the academy, but I had to redo them, a number of times just to try to make them clear, because it's a common pain point for sellers to learn the differences between the different match types. An exact match, an exact match type is generally where if somebody is doing a search for, let me use this example here. For marshmallow sticks wooden, as an example. If you have a certain population, a certain number of shoppers that always use the term specifically marshmallow sticks wooden, then with a, let's see here, with a broad match, let me see if I can get this right here. Broad phrase, exact. Okay. So then on each of these, come on. Broad match, if you are bidding on, say, even marshmallow, a broad match still can match up to, because there's at least one match to what the shopper is searching for. Marshmallow is also found in the search term the customer used. A broad match would actually capture that and make a match and say, okay, we can show your ad based off of your broad match of marshmallow. It's the most flexible. It typically gets the highest views. However, it's the most untargeted match type, and therefore the click-through rate and the conversion rates are generally lower, especially conversion rate. There are exceptions to that, of course, as far as brand names and very niche terminology. In something like phrase, if you bid on, then with a phrase match, it's also going to match up to marshmallow sticks, because it's going to, marshmallow sticks is going to enforce, or sorry, phrase match is going to enforce an order. Like in this case, if we do, for instance, it's going to enforce the order that marshmallow comes before sticks. It's not going to allow sticks marshmallow to match up to a search term that has marshmallow sticks. So the word order is important. But you can also add on additional words before and after. So in this case here, you do a phrase match of marshmallow sticks. It's going to, it does match up in order, in sequence for marshmallow sticks, but it's also flexible enough to add on words before or after that term and make a match to show your ad. And then finally, exact match is, it needs to be pretty much dead on, with some exceptions, but it's going to be dead on in that if a customer searches for it has to be both in sequence and have the same amount of words. It does not add on other words, with exception. I'll tell you about that. So somebody who searches for marshmallow sticks, an exact match on marshmallow sticks wooden would actually match up directly with that, would get priority, and therefore your ad is likely to show a little bit higher than your competitors who may be only doing broad match.
Sure. Thank you.
If you are doing an exact match on, let's see here, wooden marshmallow sticks, that would not match because it's out of sequence. Same
Right.
thing with marshmallow sticks. It's missing the exact words that are in the search term. The exceptions are singular versus plural. So marshmallow stick is considered pretty much the same thing as marshmallow sticks. Now, if you do a search on Amazon, you'll get different organic results, and if you bid on marshmallow stick and marshmallow sticks, you'll get different conversion rates. However, you can't really do anything about it. So you can't both bid on marshmallow stick, the singular, and then also negative exact match marshmallow sticks in the same ad group, because otherwise they'll cancel each other out. Same thing with prepositions, for, with, on, and hopefully nobody who's an English major is going to call me out on this as far as which ones are prepositions, but they're essentially the connector words like with and for, on,
Sure.
of these words that might become filler ones, like say marshmallow with sticks, would also match up to marshmallow sticks because Amazon's going to
Hey
ignore those
Brian,
prepositions.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but we are running a little short on time. And I do want to make sure that we have some time for questions. I have been trying to address some of the questions throughout. But maybe we could just end with a couple quick questions and then your final takeaways on ultimately this is about how we can immediately increase sales and improve our profits from PPC campaigns.
Okay.
So maybe just a quick couple rounds. If you could address kind of like, especially in your campaign structure, the use of negative match types in there, how people could use negative match types to save money and improve their ROI. That would be great.
Well, certainly. So as far as negative match type, so if you are, like for instance, let's take a look at your manual campaign as an example here. And I'll sort this by the net value. You can do the same thing as far as ACOS and that type of thing, but I do the net value generally, and I look down, jump all the way down to the bottom to see what's costing me the most amount of money. In this case here, if we simply just go down here and we see that maybe there's certain keywords that have gotten enough clicks. Now, it's an arbitrary number as far as I generally use 10 clicks. I can be more aggressive and use 5 clicks. But maybe what I'm going to look for is, as a quick way to reduce costs, I'm going to look at only the ones that have 0 orders. And generally, I'm going to look at the ones that at least have, a few clicks. Let's try and be, because this amount right here, if I were to eliminate these, that's basically $20 in ad spend. Larger campaigns are going to have much greater ones. I've seen, several $1,000s of things that we could trim in some campaigns before. But in this case here, if we have, because you're bidding on marshmallow skewers as an example, you could potentially simply just pause this keyword. I don't recommend that for a couple of reasons. One of them is because usually there's a number of other search terms that are matched up to that one and to that keyword. And if you pause a keyword, then it's going to impact customer search terms that may actually be profitable and may actually be selling that are simply just not seen in this particular view.
Okay.
So generally what I'm going to recommend is usually a pattern, basically 3 steps or 3 approaches to this. The first thing is if I'm only running it in one match type, I'm going to make sure that I test it in the other match types to see if it'll perform better in a different match type. That's my first step. The second step, you're basically investing into a little bit of research at that point. If you find that doesn't work, or if you want to be more aggressive, you can do a negative exact match on the customer search term, which you can apply at the ad group level or at the campaign level. Either automatic campaigns or manual campaigns will both support it. And generally, I'm going to do negative exact match. I'm not going to do negative phrase match. Amazon is actually looking to roll out negative broad matching as well, and I really wish they wouldn't, but but negative exact match is definitely what I would be recommending, just because it's a safer approach. But if you do a negative exact match on marshmallow skewers, generally what that's going to do, it's going to take out marshmallow skewers as well as marshmallow skewer the singular, but it's not going to take out the keyword and any other search terms that are matched up to that keyword. So in that case, we're basically eliminating it from running here. Now you want to make sure that if you've got it running, if you eliminate it here, it may jump back over to your automatic campaign unless you also do a negative exact match on your automatic campaign. Because Amazon still shows it, makes it relevant enough that it's going to show it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I did just kind of want to give people a few nuggets, like immediate takeaways. If you could give like 3 things that they could do right now with their PPC campaigns in quick sentences, can you just fire off what you would do immediately?
Keep it short, Brian.
Well, no.
No, it's, I mean, it's
I
true.
understand PPC is very complicated. Requires time.
Yeah, well, and that's just it. That's how I was able to come up with a 4-week course on it. So because there's a lot more than what we're covering in the course. But
oh, absolutely.
So probably the biggest takeaways on this is take a look at the key or the search terms that are not converting, that have a number of clicks. So that's the first thing. Basically, that's probably the easiest way to do that is negative exact match search terms that have 0 orders and have maybe at least 5 clicks. I like to go 10 clicks, but on smaller campaigns you may not ever reach that. And just eliminate some of the wasted spending that is occurring here.
Okay.
Also look for keywords that may be not product relevant, like for instance hot dog machine as an example. Is probably not going to, it's probably not ever going to convert, and you can also see that in the click-through rate. In fact, look for, where is it? Case here, negative match search terms that have 0 orders. Actually, I should say a very low click-through rate. So, for instance, less than 0.1% or less than. I'm going to be more aggressive on that one. Say, no, I'll stick with that one. That's kind of a more conservative approach. So like in this case here, I would get rid of it simply because the shoppers have already basically judged this as being not relevant to their search for hot dog machine. And therefore, it's just going to continue to, until Amazon finally decides it has to get down to like 0.07% before Amazon will automatically remove it from being shown. In that time between it not performing at all, it's likely just going to continue to spend ad money. So you're basically saving money in the long run by taking care of a problem right away.
All right, and then third one, if we were just to kind of like goose sales a little bit, bump up the top line.
So in that case, as far as increases, you've got to expand as far as your reach. Unlike other advertising platforms where you can simply just increase your ad budget, Amazon's is not that big. As big as Amazon is as far as the e-commerce platform, the advertising platform is not near as big as AdWords or Bing or some of these others. And so you can't simply just throw more money at it and expect to scale up your advertising. You need to expand your portfolio of keywords that allow Amazon to make more matches to the subtle variations of search terms that shoppers use. Give them more opportunities to match up to your product and your advertising so that they're going to show your ad more often. So keyword research. Keyword research to expand the number of keywords available for Amazon to match search terms to your ad. So in your case with bamboo sticks, definitely expand the number of keywords that you're bidding on if you can for this product.
Yep.
And then also be testing out in the various match types. That's probably the fourth thing I would add is all match types. Don't simply just, there's a number of people who out in the community that will teach, go from your broad and then jump up to, move all your keywords into exact. Unfortunately, each keyword has its own personality, and some of them are going to perform better in different match types. So I test all 3 match types.
Okay, and then are you tiering bids? Broad match as the lowest bid, and exact match as the most expensive?
It's going to do that on its own. Generally, what I'm going to do, and that's another thing I was going to point out here, is that by default, the match types are in sequence as far as exact match is going to be considered or favored first, a phrase match second, the automatic broad match is going to be third, and then the manual broad match is fourth. Because I want to have the manual broad match have higher control or higher visibility, basically get the ad impressions over my automatic campaign, or yeah, my auto campaign, which is broad match also. I'll generally disrupt this sequence by setting a higher bid. Excuse me. You don't necessarily need to have a tiered or a scaled bid on exact phrase, but I would certainly make sure that your automatic campaign has a higher, or has a low, excuse me, your automatic campaign has a lower default bid than your manual broad match.
Got it. I think that's fantastic. Brian, really appreciate your time in walking through this and taking a look through Jungle Sticks and offering us some really great actionable tips on what we can do to improve. So people were curious about, you mentioned the discount code. Do you want to just tell them where they can learn more and where they can get that discount?
Absolutely. So the easiest way to go to do that, let's see here. Come on, there we go. All right, let me find the specific ones here.
And just to clarify for everyone, this is not an affiliate link. So Jungle Scout is not affiliated or getting anything from this, but this is just Brian's generosity putting this forward.
Let's see here.
But yeah, Brian did start PPC Scope, which I think is maybe what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, yeah.
All right, I was just trying to bring it up here.
Yeah, you can.
So
just
it's actually.
verbalize it and we can send it out later.
Yeah, it was actually like a bit.ly link, but it keeps on redirecting. So, there we go.
But yeah, everyone, thanks very much for joining us. PPC definitely is a real complicated topic, as we saw today, but so much to learn and really a great lever to pull up, increase your sales and really kind of goose your profits. So we will send a replay with a summary by email and post it on our blog, and yeah, hopefully we'll.
Yeah, it's a little convoluted here,
right.
but yeah, as far as the link for PPC Scope, it's simply just bit.ly, bit.ly and PPC Scope for Jungle Scout. I have one similar actually for the other one, for the Academy. That one we simply just that's been closed, and we actually opened it up specifically just so that you could basically share it. This is basically a private one here for it's just sponsored products, of course. Sponsoredproductsacademy.com is the actual course. That's more the advanced course. And then as far as the software, as far as PPC Scope, this is basically for a sign up for the new version 2.0, and this is for an offer. Basically, it's an offer for new users. And the way we basically did on, as far as the specific offer we created for that is, let me see if I can bring it up here real fast.
So there were some questions throughout as far as like PPC 101.
Okay.
We'll send that out. We've covered some of the basics that I think that Brian maybe thought people had known already. And there's some good info that we covered, so we'll send that out as well. So it looks like this is members.ppcscope/Jungle Scout. Is that right, Brian?
Yes, actually, yeah, that's another way to do it. Yeah, so members.ppcscope.com/Jungle Scout will take you directly to this. So that's probably even easier than the bit.ly link that I provided too. But normally the deal is we have basically our entry level is the $49 per month, and the number of SKUs has a limit of 5 SKUs. And normally it's a 17-day, kind of an odd one, but a 17-day trial. So specifically for the Jungle Scout audience, we're bumping that up strictly just through here because of this webinar. We're basically doubling the number of SKUs that are allowed. Plus, we're also extending it from the 17-day trial clear up to 40-day.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So it gives them plenty of time, obviously, to you're not paying for anything. It's a 40-day trial, so you've got plenty of time to try it out and decide if it's worth it to you or not. We certainly think it is, but you've got 40 days to basically kick it and see if it helps you.
Fantastic.
I know it will, but I'm biased.
So, yeah. Oh, Greg, there you are. We got you.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, with that being said, I want to say thanks a lot, Brian, for joining us again, and everyone else for being active in the chat box. We appreciate your feedback. Hopefully, we were able to answer some of your questions. And yeah, look out for the email for us in the near future, and we'll give you a recap and the replay. So thanks, everyone.
Cool. Thank you very much for having me.
Bye, guys.
Thanks again, Brian. Take care. Bye.
Take care.